all the time. This guy likes his Western Pizza Wheel. Dustin Nielson, Edmonton Sports Talk. I try and listen every morning. And, of course, from CFL on TSN. Dusty, how are things going? Do you guys have just like a year and a half's worth of snow in the last 2 weeks in Edmonton as well?
It's been a lot of shoveling.
Are you a shovel guy? Are you a shovel guy or snowblower guy?
No, definitely not a snowblower guy. Last year I got a little bit lazy and I was like, I'll get like a leaf blower, snowblower. But that doesn't work. So it didn't work. So I'm shovel guy. But then my wife threw out my favorite shovel this year. So now I'm using her shovel while I search for a new shovel. And she was just out looking for shovels today. And she said that she can't find any shovels in this city because of all the snow, I'm assuming. So I'm in a tough spot right now.
His and her shovel set. It's like The Price is Right. It's like,
it's like the ones we buy for our kids, my son and my daughter. It's the same thing, but for adults.
Yeah, if you got the blower out there, don't do that stuff at 7 a.m. Your neighbors hate it. At least till 8. We're gonna get to some stuff in a bit as far as sporting event etiquette. That's a kind of a snow blowing etiquette thing. Big news though, right? In Edmonton, Mark Kilam is the new head coach. We talked about it on this program last week. We almost felt like the DA was in on Friday with me, and he talked about almost the social posts seemed to be staged. It's like, and then all the players are coming out being like, he is like a political campaign. And then it happens. Is he the right fit in your mind, Dusty, there?
I mean, you make a good point. I don't know if I've ever seen that. In any league, the outpouring from other players to be like, hire this guy. This is the guy. I don't remember another time. So these guys obviously love him. Absolutely love him. I saw some people, I can't remember which former player it was just like, oh yeah, this is like the new Osh in the West. This is what he's going to establish there, which is interesting because Mike O'Shea came from being a special teams coordinator as well. So, but it's funny because we've had 3 press conferences here in Edmonton over the last 3.5, 4 weeks. Brought in Chris Morris, and people were like, oh, we'll see how it goes. Then they listened to his press conference and were like, oh my God, I want to run through a wall for this guy. Then he hires Ed Hervey. People have always loved Ed Hervey in this market. Ed comes out with a very passionate, press conference as well. And people are like, I love this guy. And then Mark Kilam today, I mean, his energy level was right there as well. And I'm a Detroit Lions fan. Buddies texting me being like, this guy's got a Dan Campbell vibe. His energy level's great. So, I mean, I think the 3 of them are going to work very well together. What does it lead to? Obviously, yet to be seen. But the outpouring of support for this guy, and he got emotional today when he was talking about it. He was kind of in tears with how much it meant to him that these guys are just sort of they love him that much that they want to step up and throw the support behind him. And Ed said that when he talked to some former players, it wasn't like this for any other coach. It's a very unique circumstance, which I hope it leads to other players wanting to come to Edmonton and play for him.
Emotional and crying was the last box to check. It's like, bro, we got them all.
We did them all. Because we were running it on our Lock Shop show. So 4 or 5 of my guy were sitting around watching it. And I think none of us wanted to look at each other because I had a tear running down my eye. I was just like, oh my God, I'm crying at the Mark Kilam presser. It was, well, I mean, we'll see what happens. He's coached in this league for 20 years in various positions, right? Yeah. So he's ready to go for a head coaching position, and we'll see if he can be the leader that everybody seems to think he is and have it pay off for them.
We were joking off camera. His look, the soccer hair and the goatee has stayed the same for 20 years. He's aged well. Harry says who did you think he looks like, Harry?
He looks like Rafi from the league.
Yeah, Rafi from the league he's one of my favorites. I absolutely love. I love that show. Love Rafi from the league. I mean, he's got a little bit of a Jon Snow vibe actually as well.
Yeah.
If he's doing a snow game on the sidelines, and it's funny because we were sitting there watching, and Hernan was like, "Man, look at his hair," and I said, "Yeah," and it's real. He's got no gray in his beard, and he's got no He's what is he? 45? He's a couple years older than me. Looks great from the hair game.
No play for Mr. Gray. I think there's some.
Exactly.
I think there's some
totally a little
just for men
in there
going on there. When you start seeing just for men sponsorships on the sideline at Commonwealth next year, you know what's up.
Look, man, they'll take any deal they can get. Let's do it.
And then we got to get. Then you got to get that on Edmonton Sports Talk, right? It's just
I'll take any deal we can get too. Let's go.
Easy transition. They're really building the team though, and they're going after this like Edmonton, ties to Edmonton, the U of A, Edmonton in general. Is JC Sherritt next then?
I mean, it sure would make sense, wouldn't it? I mean, he was the leader of this defense for a long time. And I was kind of looking up, he started in Calgary as a coach, then went to college, managed to be a defensive coordinator there for a little bit, and obviously back to the Canadian Football League. It does make a lot of sense. I think you'd see a very similar sort of speech from JC Sherritt if he were to take over. Like Kilam, I think won a lot of people over today and I know it's all words right now, but you're going to build a football team that represents this city and that type of stuff. And let's be honest, JC Sherritt did just that when he played here for almost a decade. So seems that he's very coveted around the league as well. So he might have a couple of opportunities, but I do think it would make a lot of sense for him. And, we know they interviewed Jordan Maksimic for the head coaching position. But depending on what happens with the coaching staff in BC, if Maksimic is out there, then he would make a fine fit here in a place that he started his career as well. So I think people would be very excited about that coaching staff if those pieces can fall into place.
Just because I love to play devil's advocate, what's the danger in bringing in the popular kids or the popular crew to an organization that needs some changes? Like, is there a downside, a potential downside?
I think it's a fair question, but it can't get any worse here. You know what I mean? Like this organization needs to do two things. They need to win just like every other organization. And preferably for this fan base, they need to win early in the season and not start 0-7 or 0-8 or 0-9. And we'll see what Hervey can do, putting players together and Kilam bringing guys in. But they do need to reconnect with their fan base. And there's a bunch of different levels of reconnecting with the fan base. There's fans that they've lost that are still mad they're not called the Eskimos and they will never come back. That's just their viewpoint, whatever. That's their opinion. But then there's fans that passionately care about this team but are so frustrated with losing. Like when you lose 22 straight home games, it's embarrassing. Why would anybody want to go watch that team? So you've got to connect with those. And then you've got to connect with fans who dabble in the organization once in a while, but just haven't really cared to do it lately. So there's all these different levels. And I think Chris Morris and Ed Hervey, for the most part, kill him to a lesser extent. But I think Chris Morris, who's been Mr. Football around this community for a long, long time. And then I think you can look at the firing of Ed Hervey when he got fired last time as almost the point where it all started to fall apart. So they're trying to go back and replace that. And I've seen it on my show. Like people are like, man, I'm fired up about this. I'm going to get tickets again. So, I mean, get those people back in. But if you don't win, they're going to leave again anyway. So a combination of a bunch of different things. So I think it's worth the risk of running it back here a little bit.
I respect organizations or businesses in general that you shouldn't have fired that guy. Let's circle back and bring him back. And a lot of times they're like, oh no, we can't do that. Why? You made a mistake. You got egg on your face. Eat some crow. Bring him back. No, it was an awful decision. When they did that last time, they fired Ed Hervey and Len Rhodes said winning isn't everything. And that was 9 years ago. And they haven't recovered since. So I think if anybody's going to bring people back, it's the guy who should have never been let go in the first place. Trey Ford, the guy there who backs him up.
I think Trey Ford's going to be the guy. I'm very intrigued to see what the contract looks like in comparison to Davis Alexander, for example, who has less of a track record than Trey Ford and got 3 years with a potential of $1.2 million. So we'll see what happens on that front. I mean, if Ed and Mark believe in Trey Ford, then he will 100% be the guy. Now, when Ed took over, he did say he wants him to have to compete for the number one job. We've been discussing this for a couple weeks now across our station, and like Jake Mayer is interesting to me. I think he might be a better fit for a year behind Trevor with the Riders, and then possibly take over. I like Jake. I don't think the downfall of the Calgary Stampeders last year was solely on the hands of Jake Maier. I think he can play, and I think Jake Maier comes with almost too much of he started in the league for a few years now, where if Trey sort of falters, they'll be like, okay, you got to go to Jake. I don't think they need that guy. They need as I was driving home here to do this today, I know guys on our station were talking about like a Jeremiah Mazzoli, who's a veteran guy, just kind of near the end of his career. There's potential to start if Trey Ford doesn't pan out with given the opportunity. But like a Cody Fajardo or a Jake Maier, not to put Jake and Cody on the same level because Cody's he's a champion now, but like those guys, I think there'd be too many people calling for the switch right away. So, a guy like Arbuckle might be okay. Just won the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
Come on in, back up. If you need to go to him a couple of times, something along those lines. I mean, not a bad idea either. So there's no shortage of options. It's just a matter of finding a guy that doesn't create quarterback controversy week 3.
You bring up the good point, because I was all about Fajardo Edmonton. And then I'm like, yeah, but I think he wants to stick it to Montreal. He wants to play. And then everyone's 2 games in, you're going to be calling for Fajardo. And it's like, no, this isn't, they're going to do it right. I think they're going to do it right in Edmonton. The other thing, Dusty, is you see the game as much as anyone and you call all these games. I'm going back to when I was a kid, maybe the like Burgess and Austin, somebody could argue there, but it's never been more important to have 2 quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have them. There was a time here in Edmonton that they had Damon Allen, Tracy Ham, and Matt Dunnigan on the same roster. Like, that's insane. You're not going to get there. That's like having Zach Collaros, Vernon Adams, and Nathan Rourke on the same roster right now. I guess BC came close to it, but it still didn't work for them. So that's a tough pill to swallow there. But you got to have 2 quarterbacks. Like, look at the Bombers. Look at what just happened. Look at the Grey Cup, for example. The Argos lose their guy going into the game, and their backup gets the job done. The Bombers, not that Collaros was great before he got hurt anyway, but they had to roll to essentially their number 3 in Terry Wilson because Strevler was hurt. So, I mean, you have to have 2 quarterbacks. And I do think there's enough quality quarterbacks in this league for most teams to have 2 really good guys. So you just don't want to be the team that's left out, at the end of the musical chairs here that we're going to see, that has the unproven guy at quarterback. And then if you have an injury, you're in a lot of trouble.
Arbuckle thing. That's man, where's I would like to know what his mindset is right now, really, right? Like, is he like, I got kind of a little bit lucky, or is he like, hey, I'm the guy, shirt unbuttoned, chains, like, give me the cash here.
He's got to be a realist. Like, he has to be a realist. And I think anytime he's on the sideline, wherever he is, it moves him closer to becoming a coach, which he wants to become, right? True. So, I mean, continue to I don't care. He could play on 4 different teams in the next 4 years and meet 4 different coaching staffs and have 4 different options what he's done. So I don't mind Arbuckle. I don't know if he comes in and saves the season of a team like Edmonton as opposed to a team that had Grey Cup pedigree just a couple of years ago. But I mean, I don't want to have to be sitting here doing my show week 4 going, okay, well, who do they go to at quarterback? And you're not going to properly develop Trey if he has to look over his shoulder to a former, like, let's say Cody Fajardo or somebody like that the entire time. I mean, look what happened last year with MBT.
Dustin Nielson from Edmonton Sports Talk joining us, and of course CFL on TSN. Can we shift to hockey quick? How many Edmonton Oilers are playing on the Canadian roster for the 4 Nations? Just McDavid?
I wish I had that answer for you, because I've asked like 9 different people myself on my show over the last week, and I can't get any answers. It's funny, we had Drager on this morning. He goes, it's usually by now Drager would have like sucked the team out of somebody. He's like, but Hockey Canada has been super tight with everything. So Rashad made an interesting case this morning on our show for Stuart Skinner. He hasn't played well this year. 3 of his last 4 games, he's been pretty darn good, and maybe he's trending in the right direction, and tournament doesn't begin for a month and a half or whatever it is. So 2 months almost. Oh, 2 months, I guess. So there's still time for him to trend in that direction. Jamie McLennan last week kind of sold me on Marc-Andre Fleury being the 3rd goalie for this team. And I like that as a Canadian. I think if Cale Makar is going to be on the team, I'm not sure Bouchard serves a purpose. So that's kind of redundant. And then depending on how they want to build the club, I'm not sure there's a spot for Zach Hyman either. So I maybe Skinner as the number 3, but probably just McDavid.
I think it could be really good for the Oilers if it's just McDavid and everyone else goes to Cabo for 2 weeks or whatever it is, and they just rest, right? Because Draisaitl ain't playing. It's not bad. Looking at coolbet.com, the favorite right now is Canada at plus 125. Like absolutely no respect for Finland and Sweden in this thing. And I think it could be just tight across the board. I would say the Americans are the favorite.
Yeah, I'd probably have it like US. I mean, they got great goaltending, no matter who's going to be between the pipes. I you know what? I'd almost have them split at the top, to be honest with you, Canada and the United States. But I would not have this drop off to like 4-1 and 5-1 for Finland and Sweden. Like, I'm pretty sure Finland, I can't back this up, but I'm pretty sure Finland has made the podium in like every international hockey tournament they've ever played in. Like they always find a way. And to make the podium here, you have to win like one game. So, look at the top line on that team. What's it going to be? Barkov, Aho, and Rantanen? Like, are you supposed to have a better line than that anyway? The depth might not be there, but and the blue line might not be there for Finland, but it's such a quick tournament. I really don't know how you separate the 4 teams.
And the Finns will play hard too. Okay, so before we let you go, Harry and I are going to talk about this. What's your pet peeve when you go to sporting events? Maybe it's your kids' games, because yesterday, when you get to a high level, that you film, all the games are filmed, right? So you got some parents set up there with an iPad, filming a game, set up right in the middle of the ice, doing it, and it's all analytics now. They got to send it in for analytics, yada yada. We had one guy yesterday with just a phone all game, standing in front of our video feed to the one side. A mom goes up and says, "Hey, do you mind? Can you move, because the feed and we have to send this all in." And the guy was pretty belligerent and basically said, "Pound sand. I'm standing here. You guys move." And it's like, don't be that guy. What's your pet peeve when it comes to sporting events?
First of all, you have to realize that guy's kid is going to the National Hockey League, right? So
he needs 4 nations in a few years. Yeah. Yes, true.
I also can't complain too much about that, because during CFL season, my wife records every single shift of both of my kids' hockey. So, but she's sitting politely and doing it, or at least she says she is. So you got that going for you. You know what? I coach both my kids, so I'm on the bench a lot, so I'm not over on the other side with the parents. But we had one parent a couple weeks ago who came over on the bench to fix his kid's glasses, and then just stayed for the rest of the game. Just stayed there and was cheering his kid on
awkward.
Yeah, and he's a good kid, but he doesn't pass much. And I figured out with having his dad stand on the bench why he doesn't pass much, because I think his dad has told him, "You go score goals, as many as you possibly can." Because I was listening to him and I was like, holy smokes. And then I was looking at the other coach, because I've missed some because of CFL being gone and I'm looking at the other coach. I'm like, is this guy supposed to be on the bench still? What's going on here? So parent who invades the bench and just stays would have to be pretty high on my list.
That's a flex.
Yeah.
That is.
That's a move right there. And then, in closing, who do you like tonight? I'm still on cool bet here. Cleveland plus 6.5. Denver at home -6. Do you touch over under 41.5?
I'd probably do a teaser and drop the Broncos down to basically a money line play, and drop the total down to 36 and then take the over. Just because, I think Denver's going to score. Jameis is probably going to do a couple of things that look ridiculously cool and maybe end up in the end zone, but he's going to throw one or two. He's going to throw 1 or 2 interceptions as well. If you held a gun to my head, I'd take the Broncos minus the points. But that Jameis is. I wish Jameis could do media as a starter, but still just be a backup. He's the one who talks to the media every week, all that type of stuff. I think that'd be great.
He's an interesting character.
Oh, yeah.
A good way to put it. Dustin Nielson, thanks for short notice here. thanks so much. Appreciate it. Always fun to chat.
Yeah, you can. I'll send you my address. You can ship me that Western pizza. All right, that'll be great. Thank you. See you later.